Well, hi folks. August 19th on Vancouver Island. A little bit of a drizzly day today, sort of cooling things off. It's been sort of hot. Trust everybody as well. As always, I'm going to put some links in the description for those who have an interest. And the first one is about journalists. Canadian Association of Journalists trying to prevent rebel news from being in the Alberta, reporting from the Alberta legislature. It's sort of interesting. Our free speech journalists who don't really give us the news of a lot of things, but want to bar journalists who do give you the other side of it, from reporting. Go figure. I mean, all of our journalists who are in bed with governments, just giving us the propaganda side, don't want the other side to be portrayed. Why is that? Why is that? It's a good question. Why do we have a lot of things that everybody just takes for granted? There was a fellow killed not killed, but thoroughly beaten up, savagely beaten in Portland. And I'm not seeing that on the major networks. Nobody talks about that. I mean, this guy, you have to go to social media for that. Even some social media are banning it. Why is that? A black guy is on camera kicking the hell out of a guy was trying to help a transgender individual who's being robbed, was visually beaten. And there's a picture of this black guy just like he's kicking a field goal, just lining up and kicking this guy in the head. Think about that. Nobody's reporting it. Why is that? Well, it's a good question. Now, the propaganda really, really reigns supreme. And let me preface all this propaganda side by saying that if you are suffering from an illness or you have high blood pressure or have diabetes, be very careful with any kind of virus going around, because you could get sick and it could be deadly for you. But all of the craziness that's going on with this virus is driving me nuts. When you look at New Zealand and you look at Australia, and you can go online and check it out yourself. Don't wait for CTV or CBC or NBC or CNN or BBC to report this. You have to go dig it and look at it. The draconian things they're doing down there are just unbelievable. Cops grabbing women by the throat and throwing them on the ground because they're not wearing a mask. Think about that. Think about that. And of course, I watched our Trudeau yesterday marching out with all their masks. And do you realize most of those masks were not fitted properly? They were opened up here, opened on the side. I think I saw one that would be sufficient. You could sufficiently say would give you some protection. They just got these cloth things hanging on their face just because. Don't get me wrong, if you're sick, a mask can help. But I'm listening at teachers and I'm listening to all this crap about schools and kids with masks. It's obscene. It's totally nuts. And I'm saying that in this sense. In January, February, March, I was talking masks. Didn't know what the hell was going on because nobody else. The information coming was sort of skewed. All of the World Health Organization, all of our doctors, I shouldn't say all, but most of the ones that were blabbering on television, politicians as well, were telling us you're crazy if you're wearing a mask. It's more harm than good. Now in a lot of places are mandatory. Why is that? Propaganda. Then we get actors coming on to talk to our premier Horgan's heroes there, giving us some more bullshit propaganda about the virus, the Wuhan waltz, why it's so dangerous. Just trying to frighten people a little bit more. I think his name was Ryan Reynolds. Now, I don't know who the hell this guy is. Now, he may be a great actor, but he sure didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And I guess Horgan had him on there just to sort of pump the organ, pump the thing. It's crazy. Let me give you some numbers. And you can confirm these yourselves. Just get online and go to work, and it doesn't take long. Old guy like me can do it. If you're a younger person, you should be able to wrap these numbers off really quickly. January 1st to June 30th this year in British Columbia, we have 728 overdose deaths. Did you hear that? 728 people died from overdoses in British Columbia. Suicides, we don't have the number in yet, but the best numbers I could find, now maybe you could sort of give a hand here and find more current ones, but in 2018 there were 575 suicide deaths in British Columbia. And we have a population, according to statistics, of approximately 5,100,000. The Canadian suicide rate, this is from Statistics Canada, the Canadian suicide rate is the equivalent of a loaded 747 jumbo jet. Loaded 747 jumbo jet crashing every month with no survivors. That's the Canadian suicide rate. Think about that. Cancer. It's estimated in Canada 83,300 people will die from cancer this year. 83,300 people will die from cancer in Canada this year. So if we cut that in half, that's what, 41,000 and change? In BC, the estimate is that 200 people will die for every 100,000 population. So that means 10,200 people will die from cancer in British Columbia this year. So if we cut that in half, to put it into the statistics for this January to June, that would mean that we've lost 5,100 people to cancer. That's a big number. World hunger. How many people do you think have died from hunger so far in 6 months in the world? If I said 5,709,360, would you be alarmed? 5,709,360 people have died from lack of food. Think about that. A lot of these deaths are occurring in places where, guess what? Mr. Obama started like 7 wars. There's wars going on. They're just, see, this is what drives me nuts, because this doesn't have to happen. People are just too worried about money. Start all these crazy wars. Incidentally, Trump hasn't started one war. Think about that. And nobody likes Trump. But 5,709,360 people dying from starvation. And I don't see anybody sort of pulling an alarm bell on that. And it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. We have enough food for that. It's just that people, the money-hungry people who don't want to share it or spread it around, the distribution lines are broken up. We give it to some friggin' dictator who goes and gives it to his buddies or some politicians. Look at it's insane. It's insane. Totally insane. And so let's now get to deaths from the Wuhan waltz. 783,000 in the world. It's a lot of people. And of course, we don't know for sure if they're all from this virus because the numbers are so bloody well skewed. Could be more, could be less. Some countries we know they're probably a lot less because everybody wants to jive these numbers up. Now let's get to British Columbia. How many people have died in British Columbia so far from the coronavirus? I think it's to date, from January 1st till today, or yesterday, 198. Now here's a kicker that just kicks you right in the gut, and most people aren't mentioning this. Over 80% of those people have been in care homes. Think about that. Over 80% of the 198 deaths have been occurred in care homes in British Columbia. People we're supposed to protect. Now, these people couldn't have visitors for a long time. Still can't in some areas. You can't go see them. They can't visit the lady across the hall from them. We have them in isolation. We have them in total isolation where everybody marches because we don't want criminals to be in isolation. We put our seniors in isolation. And yet still over 80% have died. Now, some of those have passed away anyway from other conditions? Probably. But we're also excited about everybody wearing masks and teachers worried about going back to school, wanting smaller classes, and you've got to wear... it's insanity. We have lost our minds, folks. We have totally lost our minds. And yet not one person will tell people, and all this great newscasters we have that make sure your vitamin D levels are up, take vitamin C, look after your immune system, eat properly, get your rest, don't freak out, and you should be okay. You don't have to mask the whole country up. It's insanity. Now just think about this. The money we have lost from shutting the Western world down, how many people could we have fed? It's insanity. And, I'm getting like being down that Alice, down the rabbit hole, down the gopher hole. You're running into all this horseshit, all this bullshit, and it's just not making sense. It is not making sense. People are talking about science. Well, this mathematics is part of science. And the garbage that our governments and our health leaders are giving us doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So I've got some links on there for you to look at. Like I say, under the we talked about journalists, freedom of speech. I mean, we're putting that out the window. Just realize if you mention coronavirus or vaccines on social media, you get banned. Think about that. Why is that? Did you ever ask yourself, why is that? So anyway, I guess that's about enough for today. Look up those numbers for yourself if you don't believe me. In British Columbia, 198 people have died from the coronavirus, so they say, if the statistics are right. Over 80% are in seniors' homes, people we're supposed to look after. Nobody's taking responsibility for that. Hell, in New York, the great Governor Cuomo forced people to go back, even when they knew they had the disease, the virus, forced them to go back into senior homes. Nobody is holding this asshole accountable, because there's no other word you can use for that. No one is holding that fool accountable. He's prancing around. They wanted him to maybe take Biden's place for a while there. People, we've lost our minds. We're stupid. 728 overdose deaths in BC versus 198 coronavirus deaths. January to end of June. And again, that's sort of skewed because the date of 198 is as of today. That's sort of almost 2 months more. So I'd imagine our deaths were probably 50 lower, or maybe around that, to compare it to the overdose deaths. And you sort of talk to people about these overdose deaths. I talk to a lot of politicians, local politicians, provincial and federal. And everybody sort of gets concerned about the overdose deaths. But the best solution to that would be to cut off the supply. Ever think about that? Why don't we cut off the supply? It's a good question. Too many three-piece suits are making friggin' money from it, that's why. Just do your research. So all this commotion, shutting down the economy, affecting thousands of people, destroying small businesses and jobs, over a pile of bullshit. And the thing that's even sadder is more and more people lining up to believe this crap. We got to, I don't know, give our heads a shake. It's, I don't know, when you think about 5,709,360 people dying because they don't have any food to eat, that's concerning. Totally concerning. Anybody, now, and death is a natural process of life, so we have to not be surprised when people do die, because eventually we all will. But things that could be prevented. Masking up kids has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just think about that. A little kid trying to figure out who he is or she is, their personality is just developing. Now we mask them up, and you're no more than the rivet on the fence. Keep 6 feet apart, don't touch anybody. You're not a human being anymore. And adults are lining up to applaud this sort of stupidness. I think we really, really have to sort of give our heads a shake collectively and come to our senses. And as far as business goes, I think we've got to get the medical people the hell out of that. They're having trouble figuring out what to wear a mask, not wear a mask, social distance, don't social distance, put a mask on when you go into a restaurant, take it off when you... It's crazy. I mean, those guys can't figure out the Wuhan waltz, and now we're having them sort of dictating the economy. It's crazy, man. But anyway, bye for now. Take care. See you tomorrow.